Loveless, and I am a senior industrial designer and the team lead of industrial design at StarFish Medical Toronto. The emotional interaction that someone has with a medical device actually influences their perceptions of that device itself. And those are sort of the instant and the subconscious reactions that someone has to a device or an object. Whether we control them or not, whether we like it or not, if we look at something that we are going to be interacting with, we have a response to it. It's human nature, and it's a cultural association that we have. We are starting to see several studies, and there are ongoing studies that are making that direct link, that direct connection to a patient's emotional response and a patient's increased anxiety and decreased or poorer outcomes in the clinical procedure itself. Those poorer outcomes, they can influence potentially increased stays in the hospital, repeat visits, and that starts to have a much more tangible influence on the device itself. You start to talk about the financials of the medical system and how the aesthetic design in lowering the anxiety of the device can start to influence the financials. We can look at something and say, I believe that this will provide accurate results, even without ever actually acting with that device. One of the other responses, and this is much more from the patient end of it, is the emotional response and sort of what level of anxiety do I anticipate when I look at this device. Some examples are, if you look at some stereotactic frames that are used for brain surgeries, some of those actually look like torture devices. And this simple reaction, if you just look at one of these, is increased anxiety, increased stress, and that's going to have very negative outcomes on that actual procedure, or at least will influence the patient's outcomes in that procedure. When a patient is experiencing a hospital stay, they are contained to a hospital bed and unable to leave, almost imprisoned, I guess is a word for it. If you look at the design of some older hospital beds, they are very much made out of steel tubing and sort of create a frame around the patient themselves. And that aesthetic instantly conjures up visions of sort of being imprisoned, being trapped. And so when we move forward with hospital beds, we want to look at those materials. We want to address that cultural stigma that comes along with those materials. And how do we apply them, and how do we influence the patient's perception of them? If you want to learn more about this topic, you can reference my blog on the StarFish website.